Well, 60 years straight is a long time to do any job, let alone farming. At 81 years old, Tensas Parish's Roy Smith is the third generation to work this same piece of land, farming soybeans and corn.
He and his wife sat down with Twila's Josh Meeks to talk about how much has changed in 60 years and how much has stayed the same.
This story starts with a bit of irony. Roy Smith isn't out in his fields today in the village of Waterproof because it's been raining.
You've always got to save money for a rainy day.
But just because he's not farming doesn't mean he's not working.
I have people all the time that ask me how long is he going to farm. His reply is as long as I possibly can.
At 81 years old, he's got no plans of slowing down. Today, he's checking out his garden, which he tends to when he can't get on his tractor. It's a familiar practice as he's been doing it for quite some time.
I started in 1966 and have farmed every year since 1966, and this is my 60th crop.
He's spent his whole life within these 400 acres of soybeans and corn.
My grandfather moved here and bought this place and farmed it himself until he retired. And my dad farmed. My dad was already farming, and he farmed this too until he retired. And I started farming shortly after he retired.
In 60 years, he's seen a lot of change. Planting and harvesting these fields used to be a tougher grind.
Prices were terrible at that time, but it didn't cost a lot in expenses to make a crop. We made a good living. And combine at that time was only a 4-row combine and like a 14-foot header. And nowadays you see most combines with a 40-foot header on them, and sometimes plus. It's gotten easier, more complicated.
Roy and his wife, Billa Faye, raised 2 kids out here. They say farm life gives character and values you can't really find anywhere else.
When we were raising our children and they were growing up on a farm, you had work time and you had play time. They know how things are harvested. They know what you do with it. They know the money that is put into it. They know the time that is put into it. Other people take all that for granted.
And they don't see the past through rose-colored glasses either. They've had their fair share of struggles in 60 years.
We have, just a few years ago, soybeans that rotted in the field we didn't even harvest. And you got to be pretty tough to keep going with have a good attitude. Everybody says, well, next year will be better. You got to look at it that way.
But it's those hard times that have kept Roy strong through the years. He says his secret is to never stop moving. If he's not farming, he's gardening. And if he's not gardening, he's got other hobbies to keep him busy.
Because I love doing it, and I need to be doing something to stay active, and what more will keep me active than what I've always done.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's Roy's policy. I asked him if there's any chance of retirement in his future.
My wife has said, and others have said over the years, if you win the lottery, you don't quit farming. I said, if I won the lottery, I would just farm easier.
So practically everything that comes out of that garden is given away. Virtually everyone in town who has any kind of relationship with the Smiths knows they can always count on jars of salsa, possum grapes, pasta sauce, and much, much more. And guys, you know, everybody has that story about, you know, back in my day or when I was your age. In fact, I'm guilty of it too. But when you sit down and you listen to their stories about how much has changed in 60 years, you can really kind of see how things have changed in 60 years and why they feel the way that they do.
But you know what hasn't changed, Josh, is as soon as you said possum grapes, we had the one question. What's a possum grape?
I had the same question when they gave me the jar. It has nothing to do with possums being involved. They just happen to like them. They grow really high on trees, and they're very tart. She gave me a jelly. They're kind of like raspberries, but they're very good.
Interesting. Awesome story, Josh Meeks. Thank you so much for bringing it to us.